My name is Giorgio Piacenza. I am at the Paracas History Museum. I'm going to do some craniometric studies. Here we have a large collection of skulls from the Paracas people. There are different kinds of deformations, different kinds, and one of the things that has been said in previous research by other people is that these little holes here are particular of the Paracas people. Here we see another skull showing these little holes, these two little holes on each side of the head. But if one looks in the medical literature, this is not abnormal. This is not only of the Paracas. Here we see an illustration, a medical illustration, and they're called sometimes parietal holes or parietal fossas in Latin. Here they are, and here they are. So as a researcher, this makes me doubt that some of the other research done here might or might not be exact. It might not be exact if they missed something like that. If we say, for example, that there is a different number of bone plates in the skull, that is something that has to be also clarified with medical researchers and physical anthropologists. Here we see a skull that seems to have been deformed with by pressure, and not necessarily an entity, a being that was born like that. We would have to find then if there are original skulls, the most ancient perhaps, that were born like this. But here in the Paracas History Museum, in a previous opportunity, I found the pressure, what do you call it, deforming instruments. Okay, so that's one typical skull deforming instrument that was used. The question is whether they did this in order to look similar to another population that came earlier, perhaps from Crimea or the Caspian Sea or the Black Sea in that area, because according to some genetic research by Brian Forster, some haplogroups from those areas have been found here in the Paracas skulls. But once again, since they missed this detail about the little holes on the back of the head, which are found also in regular skulls and is in the medical literature, that makes me doubt if the rest of the work has been done properly. One of the things that I noticed before was that in some reports about the Paracas skulls was that they were giants. As we can see, for example, this particularly deformed skull is one of the largest, perhaps the largest in the collection here at the Paracas History Museum. It goes up. It's very vertical. That doesn't necessarily mean that the total volume inside is larger, because it could be narrower. And volume is given by height, width, and length, multiplied in centimeters, and then with a formula you get an approximation. But what I did in my previous research is to put quinoa, dried quinoa seeds inside that cranium, the largest, apparently the largest in the museum, and then pour this quinoa in a measuring cup. It gave me 1,300 cubic centimeters, which is within normal range. Normal range. We must understand that there's a range, approximately between 1,000 and 1,900 cubic centimeters. 1,000 and 1,900 is the largest human heads. Or skulls. So the volume of the head it varies from person to person, but this particular large-looking skull was within normal range, 1,300 cubic centimeters. Another characteristic here is that the hair is red. Could well be because these people came from the Crimea area, or they were descendants of the people that came from there, and that their blood type is different, and that their genes are different from typical Native American people from South America. But I also asked the medical establishment here in Peru. I asked a few doctors, and they told me in the Colegio Médico, the medical school, they told me that it also has to do with two factors. Either malnutrition, because some people in the jungle that are malnourished, some of them have reddish hair, or because time and stains, creates this effect in human hair. Still, we can see, because I don't have a particular axe to grind here, it could well be that the hair is from somewhere else, because you can see it's very fine. It's not straight hair, just as Brian Forster has noticed. It is, here we see other samples. It looks very Caucasian. So I hope that more scientists, especially in Peru, become interested in clarifying matters and in establishing a dialogue with the scientists that came with Mr. Forster. This is very important. This is very important for the world, and also it could change history if after all some people from abroad, from other lands, managed to reach the Bay of Paracas and settle here. We are going to weigh the largest skull, the same one that I measured the volume before. We're going to weigh it because also it's been said that they tend to be heavier than normal, and many people think that these are the descendants of the giants from the Bible. The Anunnaki, perhaps, and the Nephilim, or the Nephilim. So this is something that has to be done. I don't think, from what I was feeling, how much it weighed normal to me. At least the volume was normal, so the weight should be normal. I will try to compare it if they allow me to compare it with another skull. I would probably compare it with a not so heavily deformed skull. These skulls are about approximately 2,000 years old, more or less, because it's a whole range, and some of them still have the teeth, from which DNA samples can be often extracted. Here we see a helmet with which the warriors protected their head, but this is an Inca helmet. So I'm waiting here for people to come and open and allow me to weigh this skull and perhaps another one. Here we are with my old friend. I measured his brain capacity at 1,300 cubic centimeters. Now I'm going to weigh him. It's a very delicate thing because I don't want to break it. I'll do it sideways. Okay, so here we have a weight of 848 grams. 848 grams with the mandible. And some soft tissue, dried soft tissue left, some remnants of hair on the skull cap. Here. 848 grams in our digital scale. Very well. Now I'm going to weigh the second largest skull, which seems to be drier. It should probably weigh a little bit less. Before returning this Paracas friend to its place, let's note the Magnus Foramen. The location might be perhaps towards the back, because as an adaptation, as a probable adaptation to the deformity and the weights, to distribute the weight more evenly, to sustain the head properly. I don't know, that's another detail one has to consider. So I hope medical anthropologists and physical anthropologists care to respond to these observations. Okay, now we are measuring, for comparison, the second largest skull that I can find is the white skull with these indentations and deformities that we saw up there. And the weight of this skull is 599 grams. Later on, we will look at charts for normal weight, or find out in medical literature how ancient skulls fare in terms of weight. These skulls already do have some small amounts of flesh, small amounts of decaying flesh. You can feel the smell in them. You can feel a decaying flesh smell still. Here the Magnus Foramen is also located way behind, maybe even further behind than the previous skull that we saw. And that might be just a simple adaptation when growing up under these circumstances. Okay. Now, finally, for comparison, we are going to weigh a normal skull. There's one normal skull here. So this one was 599 grams with the mandible. So we have returned the second largest skull to its resting place, the one that weighed 599 grams. And we have extracted a normal skull without deformities, and we're going to weigh it. This normal skull without deformities weighs 539 grams. 539 grams. That's about the range. I mean, different skulls would change within a normal range. So I don't think it's enough to conclude that that we're speaking about giants. I don't think that we should just say that. What would be very, very important is to verify if the genetic tests performed have been performed well and accurately. Once again, the hair seems to be very Caucasian. Soft hair, finer hair, reddish. But we have seen that the weight might fall within a normal range.